listening to CPA Career Path channel with Rosie Flaherty, CPA MSA. This is episode number 44. We have a special guest, Catherine, CPA, CMA, CIDA, and CFE, to share about her CPA journey. Hi, Catherine. Thank you so much for the interview today. I have a special guest, Catherine. I met Catherine at AI CPA Engage in 2023 because we both have AI CPA Outstanding Young CPA Award for 2023. Catherine, thank you so much for being on my podcast today. Can you just introduce a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Rosie. It's a pleasure to be here today. So a little bit about myself, high level where I'm at right now. I have my own CPA firm, Catherine K. Horton CPA PA, based over in Stuart, Florida. I primarily work in data analytics as well as audit services, primarily servicing other audit firms, actually, other national firms, regional firms, and small firms. Where I do independent contracting as a manager or senior manager on different audit engagements, where I go out, I work with the teams, I lead the jobs from start to finish, engage with the client and really help increase capacity for firms. But then also to, alleviate a lot of the burnout that we're seeing at those levels. I also do a lot with data analytics, where I do consulting work for various companies and nonprofits where, it's big data consolidations, trying to find different insights that can help businesses moving forward. But then also fraud detection techniques. I come in if they have questions about their books and records and how they're handled. I can do those big data consolidations and really try to find those needle in the haystacks. But I've had a very long career. I would say long. I know others may say not so long, but I've been in public accounting for about 13 years now. So had my own firm for about 5 years, but then prior to that, I worked at both regional and national firms.
Well, before we start the interview, I want to just give you a great compliment on your background behind you. Oh my God, look at that. So many awards. CPA 40 under 40, AI CPA Outstanding Award.
It's an honor to be there with you when we both got it, because I actually have mine right here as well. And so to be there at Engage last year, to be on stage and to have that recognition with you was just unbelievable.
I know. That was amazing. That was my first time at AI CPA Engage. So it was quite overwhelming for me at that time. But it was fun. I met so many people, especially I met you. For audience, Catherine and I, we are 2 of 5 winners for AI CPA Outstanding Young CPA Awards in 2023. So congrats to you, to all 5 of us. It's just amazing awards. Let's go back to this interview for today. Catherine, can you just tell me why at the very beginning you start your accounting major in college?
Yeah, so it's actually a little bit of a different story than most. So when I first started, I wanted to do statistics. So I had done accounting in high school as a class. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very common sense, as to the different mechanics behind it. But I also love statistics as well. And so I actually wanted to start, and become an actuary. But when I started college, I found very quickly that calculus was not a great course for me. I really struggled with those courses. And I realized how many of those courses were needed really for an actuary degree, or for a statistics degree to go into being an actuary. So when I saw those roadblocks, I thought, why take a career path that I know might be difficult, where there's another career path here. I liked accounting, it's something I can see myself doing, and I don't, view it as challenge every day as I would on the other side. It's very common sense, I find, the mechanics. So, I ended up getting my accounting degree, started off, took the exam right away when I graduated. So I had my 120 credit hours. I took the exam and I passed. But at that time, when I graduated, it was 2009, 2010, where the job market was really just not good. And I had a very hard time finding an internship. I primarily did night school because I worked during the day to pay for my way through school. And I just never had time to go to the Beta Alpha Psi events, to the Meet the Firm, because they were all during the day. So I did night school, but when I graduated, I was like, wait a minute, there's no clear pathway here for me. So I tried on my own finding, accounting jobs, but I just could not find anything. So that's when I started my first job at a factory. It was Dayton Granger, made aircraft parts. And I remember talking with them initially, and I said, I want to be an accountant. I have the CPA exam passed. I need these, the education and the work experience to be licensed. Would I be able to get that work experience here? Because that's something I would like. And they were very honest, where they said, we don't have those openings in the accounting department, but we can have you work in operations. You can see production in a very unique working environment. It'll give you a great foundation for your career, but we can give you a job that can lead you towards that. So that's what I did. I spent 2 years working at a factory, making aircraft parts. I worked in production control, ran through the factory, because they made all the parts there proprietarily for the most part. So from an operations standpoint, it was really, really cool to see. And then I really enjoyed when actually the auditors would come in, because they would come and they would talk to me, because I was production control and I handled a lot of the now I know internal controls. So the auditors would come in, I'd help out on the inventory observations, but I really enjoyed and interested in what they were doing. So I knew at that point, okay, I do want to go into accounting, and I think I do want to do audit, because I like what I see, and I think it would be an interesting career choice. So, I ended up finding an internship. I went to the career fair, pounded the pavement, and got a call back from a really great firm, Daskell Bolton, over in Southeast Florida, a regional firm. I really enjoyed, the people, the environment. And I remember going at the factory, when I got the internship, I walked in there and I said, hey, I got what I was looking, there's an opportunity here in accounting. I'm starting back to get my master's. I have the exam. This is really the career path for me. And I have to say, they were so supportive of that journey. And so I always think back to, Dayton Granger. It was a very nice family run business. They were in business for 60 plus years. But they were encouraging every step of the way, which was a huge help considering, the career path I was on and what I was looking for.
Wow, you mentioned about working for 2 years at the production company. I'm just wondering which skills that you learned from that position that you think is very helpful for your accounting profession.
Yeah, so I really saw everything from an operational standpoint, but really from like a cost accounting standpoint, because every single product they had in the manufacturing line had many layers to it. So they would have subcomponents to the subcomponents to the subcomponents. So one part could have 80 different parts to it. And a lot of those parts were even built there at the factory. So even the screws, nuts and bolts and screws, they would make there. And so it was fascinating to see the routings, the lead times, to see the process of, the different costs going into the product. How do we track it through the, manufacturing plant? How does it all come together in the end? And it was really thinking ahead, because we would have customer orders coming in, and okay, the orders due in, 60 days. So the lead times we have here based on the production floor, I have to make sure they're within that 60-day window. And so certain departments, it would take 3 days to get through. Some days it would take 4, depending on what department. Paint took a lot longer than the electronics. And so, it really helped give me that foundational piece. So that way, when I came into audit and clients right off the bat, as an intern and a staff, when they're talking about their operations and you have WIP and work in process and costs going into it, I already knew what they were talking about. But then also too, I knew it from the common sense perspective as well from the company's perspective, how it all works, and then merging that in with the different accounting standards, I thought was very, very helpful.
That's interesting that you mentioned to me you had a great experience with auditor when you work at the production company. Because in general, most people hate auditors when they come to work to the company.
Mhm.
I'm wondering what did they do that give you good experience that you wanted to be an auditor after working with them?
Yeah, so I've always had a very curious mind. So, when they came in, we're doing the walkthroughs with me. I was like, hey, just curious why. I have an accounting degree, but I just want to know, why do you do this process as far as asking, regarding the controls in place and things like that. So they gave me a little bit of background. I'm like, okay. And then, as I'm getting things together for the inventory observation, I'm asking our warehouse managers, production managers, why are we doing this? And they're like, oh, because they have to come in and verify our records. And then I would watch them do it, as they would go through their test counts. And, I thought it was a very dynamic field, where, they weren't in the office. They were coming out to these different client sites and, when I asked, like, did you just do these types? They were like, no, we do all types of, companies that we go into, not just manufacturing. And so I was able to really see, okay, this is a full scope of what they do. And it's a very dynamic environment. And that really drew me. I knew I wanted accounting, but when I saw that, it was a whole nother side to it, outside of bookkeeping and tax on, some areas I was familiar with. I knew audit, but, again, when you read it in the textbooks, you always think they're still in the office, doing it. But when you see they're actually going out places, it kind of, piques your interest a little bit.
After you work at the production company for about 2 years, you already have some experience. So when
Yep.
you start an internship, you start at a different point with other people when for students who probably still encouraged to have this internship. How was your experience as an intern when you already have 2 years under your belt?
I thought having that 2 years was extremely helpful in setting almost a level of maturity as far as within a business environment. So I already knew coming in as an intern, rereading my emails, hey, this sounds a little harsh. Let me, tweak this a little bit, how you interact with your clients and colleagues. It's not, why is this wrong? It's how, what's the fix and how do we correct it going forward? It's a whole different mindset shift. But it was very helpful because I do see that a lot of times with interns, and it's just building that experience, knowing how to talk with clients, knowing how to talk with their peers, and doing so in a business environment, where I felt like having that first 2 years gave me that maturity. So coming in, I was ready to hit the ground running, within the business sense. And they did that first week. I was already out at a client working on, audits. That's being at a regional firm, smaller firm, you get those experiences I felt much earlier on.
That's good. So you did the internship for only 5 months, and then you become an audit associate within the same firm. So from an intern position to an audit associate position, what did you see the difference in those two positions?
To kind of frame how my internship was, I think, because that's a good way to see the next step forward. Being at a regional firm, my intern class in the audit department was 3. It was myself and 2 others. So, I felt each of us really were able to get that real well-rounded training because each of us had a set mentor, supervisor that we worked with that literally from day one you start training with, and they take you out on their jobs and you really learn. But with the 3 interns, we knew there was only 2 positions for staff. So it was a very healthy competition I felt there where everybody was just going above and beyond, trying to learn, trying to be the best professional they could be in hopes of getting one of those 2 spots. And, so I was lucky to get one of those 2 spots, but we all really did put a lot of hard work there to get there. So to transition from the intern to the staff role wasn't too much of a change. I felt my internship really set the stage for me to move into a staff role and be successful there. Especially because being at a small firm, it was me as, the intern, and then I had a set staff that taught me through and through. I had a set supervisor who was my mentor. We all worked together on the same job. So I was always able to learn. By the time that 5 months was up, I was ready to set sail as a staff and really start taking jobs on my own.
During the time that you were audit associate, can you share some fun experience with the client that you got? Because I know as an auditor, you have an opportunities to go out there to work with different clients, different industries, different environment. So what was the funniest moment that you remember when you were an audit associate?
Yeah, so I guess, funny moments as an audit associate, you always have kind of those trial and error moments. It's just part of learning. Of course, I had with clients certain things with dates that I had messed up and, things like that. Nothing too earth shattering, but it's just something you kind of learn along the way. But one thing, when I was an associate, that I think is really good for all associates to kind of keep in mind is just to have that open mind and just be a sponge for learning. Because when I was an associate, that was one thing. I kept getting all of these files, and I'm sure you have the same thing, client files. It's all these massive Excel files. And back in 2012, 2013, my question as an intern and a staff was like, okay, we get these files, but how do we know we're working with good data? I know, we do detailed testing, we do roll forwards, but how do we know that the guy's not in his basement typing up this information onto Excel and then giving it to us the next day? And I never could really, find what I thought was, the Excalibur sword, so to speak, that could really get me there. And it was 2013, I was a staff, just became there from this intern, and I saw a data analytic program. And it was in a CPE. It was all 5 minutes, but I saw it and they said, oh, we can do all this big data mining. And, and I was like, that's the answer. That's what I've been looking for. So I took it upon myself. I started learning the program. I went to different trainings, did a lot of self-study, a lot of hard work there. But I learned the programs. I learned different queries. Learned different ways to really infuse that data analytics statistics side that I loved into accounting. But then I realized there really weren't many people in that space. And I was always trying to find how I could differentiate myself as a professional. Because my thought was there's 10,000 or hundreds of thousands of accountants out there. What's going to make me different? What's going to make me stand out? And I thought, okay, maybe certification. So I got a bunch of certifications. I was like, okay, maybe, if I volunteer with these different organizations. But the data analytics was the big difference. Not many people were in there. And I said, I love this. I'm doing a lot of good things. I can really make this my own. I started doing CPEs internally. I started doing speaking engagements. I found there was a huge audience for that. Nobody was talking about practical applications with data analytics. They were all caught up in the theory. And here's a slide of, in theory of what data analytics can do. But no one was showing, hey, here's things you can do on your client data that you can actually do tomorrow in your office to try to, find, different anomalies or different insights that you can give to your client. But that ended up being one of the best career choices I made, was taking the time to learn data analytics, the software, practical applications, because doing that, owning it, doing the public speaking, which not many people were doing, allowed me to create myself as an industry expert with data analytics, and become nationally recognized in that field. I won a national award when I think I was a supervisor or a senior, and it just really built from there. But, definitely at that associate stage, keep your eyes open, think of the differentiator, and beyond really audit or tax or public companies, not-for-profits, just keep diving further and try to find what that differentiator is going to be, that you can say, okay, out of these 100 of thousands of accountants out there, this is what makes me different. So just something definitely, I think, our young professionals or anybody really entering the profession, just some things to consider.
That's so amazing that you did a lot of self-study, self-taught for this software, and then you got the national recognition for data analysis just a senior or supervisor. That was amazing. A lot of us, we don't even know what we want to do.
Mhm.
And so because you have such a curiosity mindset that you just want to ask why, you want to understand, you want to figure it out. And so that's why you figured out that this is what I'm looking for.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
what would you advise for people who still try to find their career path, try to figure out what they should focus on their niche?
Mhm. With that, it's always really, what are your interest areas? What are your true interest areas? And this was something I actually learned from the AICPA Leadership Academy, which I thought was a really good, it's to tie in to find your passion areas. They talked about entering the flow state. I'm not sure if you remember that. I know we were in separate classes because I know you did AICPA Leadership
Yes,
Academy
AI
as well.
Leadership Academy. It's so funny.
Yes.
I just interviewed another AI CPA Leadership Academy alumni. Now we have another alumni.
Yes, yes. And one item that we talked about there was trying to enter your flow state, trying to find activities that allow you to enter your flow state. And the flow state is when you are at a neutral calm with what you're doing. You're so far, it's when time flies by, essentially. So it's when you're working on a project or working on an area, and then all of a sudden you realize, hey, 2 hours have passed. I didn't even realize it because I've been so in tune. That's a natural flow state right there. And what I find is I tend to enter my natural flow state when I'm working on data analytics. I can be plugging away for hours there and then look and be like, okay, time really flew by, but you know what? I enjoyed what I was doing. So I always say, find your passion areas, your true interest areas. I feel like sometimes we tend to get swayed by persuasion as to others on what they think we should do. But for us, I think it's really what you really enjoy, what makes the time go by fast, because it is a career. You have, 30 plus years in what you're doing. And if you don't like what you're doing, it's going to be a very long 30 years. So try to find what keeps you active, what you're excited about, and really expand on that.
I like it. That's a great advice.
No, thank you.
So you really like data analytics. So when you stay at that small regional firm size as an auditor, you really like to focus on this data analytic. Do you still focus on client work? If so, how do you balance? How do you take advantage of this skill and support your client work?
So actually, I primarily did audits. I still primarily do audits, but I'm always able to infuse data analytics into the audits because always I can throw in big client data sets in there. I can run through audit procedures very quickly within my data analytics softwares. And then I can always find very quickly, hey, here are the odd items. Here are the items I need more information on. Here's really what stands out. So it's really a basis in audit, but then the data analytics comes in as a unique kind of complementary skill set within the audits. And it's been very, very helpful because I've had many good, I guess you can call finds, with it. It's really good too for the engagement team. So that way we really do have the full scope of information to make good informed decisions as well. But I have had it where we've gotten, data sets before where I've looked at it and I said, this is really wrong. Something's wrong here. And a couple times where we did find that fraud had occurred. And that we needed as a team, engagement team, to take remedial steps to make sure we do the right steps going forward. But provides a lot of really, really good information. So I always found that as a complementary skill set to flow in with my audits.
How do you take advantage of AI technology with your big data niche?
Mhm. So AI is a real interesting space, and as we've seen, it's really blown up over the last few years. Even though it's been around for a very long time, actually, I remember there was a data analytics software. I think it was back in 2015, 2016. MindBridge AI was one of the first I saw that was data analytics with AI infused into it. And so what it would do is it would review your data sets, but it would already categorize it into different risk profiles and, you know, really perform, a lot of detailed queries for you that are outside of, the normal, scope, that comes in with a lot of these programs. But it's very, useful, very informative. I know now that AI technology has just skyrocketed as far as capabilities. So it's a very dynamic environment, but it's kind of interesting because it's very much like data analytics was about 10 years ago, where it's the big buzz. Everybody's talking about AI right now. But it'll be interesting to see how many people really do adopt it and put it into practice within their accounting firms. And I think, we finally crossed a bridge there, because I've always said with any technology, in order for it to become, adopted within our profession, it has to have commercial viability. Meaning, we as accountants need to be able to just get it readily available, and know, though, it's giving us good information. So the trust factor with AI is still a work in process, but you have the commercial viability and you have the ease of use. And that I find to be the biggest barrier for technology adoption in our profession is the ease of use. If you can't use it easily, a lot of times it just kind of sits there. But I mean, even this last year, I was in a audit room, during busy season at a client, and one of the partners even put into Chat GPT a question, and it was an audit partner I never thought would be using AI and this level of technology, but they put it in, they're like, oh, it's so easy, and then I can get, and so I can see where it's really kind of crossing that threshold. And I think we'll take a firmer hold in data analytics, because data analytics, the barrier was the ease of use. It took a long time for people to get onboarded and have the skill sets there. But with AI, I mean, anybody can use it, the ease of use. So we'll see how far the adoption goes in our profession, but it's a very exciting time.
It is very exciting. And I can see the trending, how much people use in the past, just last year to today. I can see a lot of people start using it more and more often, not just in accounting profession, but also in daily life as well. So I
Mhm.
would say that ease of use is such a huge deal that everyone at any level can use it.
Mhm. Yes.
We agree. And I know that you have such a big love about big data. How did you train the staff as an audit manager
Mhm.
to follow your path, or at least to understand what you did when you still stay at the regional firm?
Mhm. Yeah. So as far as, getting staff onboarded with data analytics, there were, definitely some learning curves there, so it was really trying to find, the right staff for it, because you can't pick a staff and say, hey, you have to learn this. If it's not a passion area, it's not going to fly. So it's really trying to find those who have a technology interest, who have that analytical mindset, and who are willing to learn. So I definitely found a few, that I was able to take under my wing, kind of train them and teach them. I did suggest, and I do suggest this for everybody, when it comes to data analytics softwares, a lot of times it's best to even do, a training, with that provider, that software provider. So that way you get all the direct information. It gives you the right baseline. And then you can, really infuse that creativity to say, okay, now I know the technical aspect of how it works. How do I apply that, with my audit standard, my client data, my queries, and information that I'm specifically looking for here? So it's trying to find the right people. It's not for everybody, but it's doing that. But really, those who have the passion and the interest, and the curious mindset. always welcome those aboard the data analytic train.
Did you spend a lot of time training staffs for that?
Yes, so there was a good amount of time. I did have one staff where, I told them, I was like, I'll come in on Saturdays. I can meet you in the office. We can spend 3-4 hours. If you're willing to come, I'll be willing to teach you. So I did have a staff where we did that, and it gave him just the perfect baseline to then, really start doing his own, kind of creative work there with data analytics. But it was a staff I worked with. I knew, he wanted to learn, but just based on the workload during the week, it was just very hard for him to have dedicated time to do that. So I said, if you're willing to put forth the effort, I'm going to do it 110% as well.
Wow, you such a great leader. I didn't say you're a good manager because I know you are a good manager, but you're such a good leader. That's make you different between being a leader and being a manager, because you're willing to lead your staff, not just to tell them, hey, you need to do A, B, C, and D, but you focus on the growth of the staff as well. So that's amazing. I love it.
Oh, thank you.